This week we're going to finish the plans for the black box that we started last week. This should be where you were at the conclusion of Project 10. We've created the walls and the seating for the black box. Next we're going to work on the tension grid and the lighting. So if I go back to the PDF on page 4, you'll see this is the tension grid. My original intention last week when I stopped the project was that we were going to model this week, but then I looked at it and realized it's just tedious, and I didn't even model it. I copied it from the AutoCAD file of the company that built the tension grid, so I'm just going to give you the model of it and have you paste it into your file. So if you find the file in WebCourse, it's called Black Box Tension Grid, and open it up, you should see this. And I'm going to isometric here and OpenGL. This is the steel support structure for the tension grid. These are the pipes that hang from the building structure that support the steel structure here, and then this steel structure supports the actual tension cable grid, which is not in the model. I've never actually seen a model of a theater that has a tension grid that had the actual grid, the steel cables, and the model, because that would take an enormous amount of memory. If you wanted to model the actual grid, you would probably do it with a texture with transparency that showed the grid of the steel cables, but not the actual cables themselves. So if you go to top plan view of this model and just select the group and copy it, and go back to your Project 10, which you should probably save as Project 11 at this point. Before we paste this in, we're going to create a new layer. So if you go to the navigation palette and do new layer, we're going to call this layer tension grid. Put it there, and we're going to move it down so that it's part of the, so I guess it should be above the scenery. So above the scenery. Well, really, it should be above one of the lighting grids too. So we'll put that there. So we created the new tension grid layer, and now we're going to paste this in. We're going to do a special paste. We're going to do edit, paste in place, which pastes it into this document in the same place that it was in the other document. You'll notice it's not right in the space in X and Y, but if we look at the front in Z, it did paste in the correct height above the floor, which should be about 19.4. That's correct. So 19.4. So back to the top, and this grid doesn't fit exactly in the space. It's close. I'm not sure which is actually off, the grid or the drawing of the grid or the drawing of the building, but they're close. So we're going to take it and we're first going to line it up right here. And then we'll see that that makes it slightly off all the way around. So then we're just going to take it and nudge using shift and the arrow keys. We're going to nudge it to the left a little bit so that it's sort of equally off from the walls all the way around. So that is where the tension grid goes. So if you look at this in isometric and OpenGL, there we have our tension grid. Back to top plan. Next, we're going to create the lighting positions, and in order to do that, we're going to do a little layer housekeeping. So if you go to layers, we're going to rename one layer and create another layer. So if you go to the lighting layer, right click on it and edit it, we're going to call this low lighting positions. These are the pipes that are underneath the tension grid, low lighting positions, okay? And then we're going to create a new layer called grid lighting positions. These are the lighting positions that are above the tension grid. and then we're going to move that so that it's just above the tension grid. So we have the theater architecture is the base layer, then the scenery layer, then we have our low lighting positions, then our tension grid, and then our grid lighting positions. Next, we want to put ourselves into the lighting positions class so that the next things that we create are automatically in that class. So if you go to the class menu here and go to stage lighting positions, so now everything we create will be in the lighting positions class. Then go to the theater architecture layer. So double click on that, and we're going to import the PDF with the lighting positions on it. So file, import PDF, find the blank black box PDF from web courses, from last week's web courses. It should also be in this week's web courses. Double click, and we want to bring in page 5. That's the page that has the lighting positions on it. So we'll import, and then we're going to want to line that up with the theater walls like that. Okay. Then we're going to go to the grid lighting positions layer. So we're going to double click that, and we want to turn off temporarily the stuff that's in our way. So we're going to turn off the tension grid. So we'll turn off that layer. And we also want to turn off the seats. The seats don't have their own layer, but they do have their own classes. So if we go to classes and at the bottom under stage seating, we'll just turn all the seating off. So those will all go away. Then we'll go back to the grid lighting positions layer. All of the lighting positions are in the grid lighting positions layer, meaning they're above the tension grid, except for this pipe, and these 3 pipes. So those hang below, but everything else is above. So we're going to work on the above positions first. So once you have this set and you make sure that you're in the stage lighting positions class and that you're in the grid lighting positions layer, go to the rigging tool set and choose the lighting pipe tool and go to preferences and just make sure that you're set to left insertion point. We're going to draw double pipes. We want the diameter to be 2 inches, and everything else should stay the same. You want to display tick marks, you want the centers to be 18 inches. All of this can stay the same. So if you click OK, then we're just going to draw these pipes. So start in the midpoint there, click, and here, click, and there's your pipe. So we're just going to draw over all of these. It doesn't particularly matter what order you do it in. I'm going to do it in from biggest to smallest, I guess. In this particular drawing, these pipes are drawn so that the numbered pipes are on top of the lettered pipes. I don't know if in reality that's the case or not. So if you want to draw it like this, of course you should draw the lettered pipes first so that you can draw the other pipes on top of them. I guess it would be a good idea for somebody to go in the black box and actually look and see if which pipes are actually on top, although it doesn't really make that much difference to the lighting design. Okay, now I can draw these pipes. this one. And finally, this is the last one that's in the grid. And before I convert these to positions, I'm going to go ahead and change their attributes so that they match what's on the PDF, which is a 0.5 line and a, I guess, a 25 fill. Rather than doing that individually, I'm just going to edit the class that they're in since they're all in the same class. So if I go to classes and stage lighting positions and edit it, select use at creation. We're going to do our solid color fill at 25% and change our line thickness to 0.5, and that should cause those all to update. Why did that not happen? Let's check that again. Potentially because of this. So if this happens to you, if you select all of them, go over to attributes and set the color to color by class, and the line style was already set to well, let's go ahead and do that, and color by class as well. That will solve that problem. The next thing we want to do is give all of these a height. I need to check the actual drawing to see what the height of these is. I don't remember, so I'm going to go to my grid lighting positions layer and select one of them and see that the height is 22 feet 3.5 inches. 22 feet 3.5 inches. Okay, so back to project 11. I'm going to select all of these. And set their height to 22 feet 3.5 inches. And we'll just look at that and make sure that that makes sense. Actually, turn the tension grid back on for a second. They should be above the tension grid. Okay, that's where they are. So then we're just individually going to convert these lighting pipes into lighting positions. So if you select one and go to Spotlight, Object Conversion, Convert to Hanging Position, then just give it a name. And this is pipe, you can't see it. This is pipe D, so that means this is pipe E. Pipe E. And it'll ask you if you want to create a symbol or if you want to use the geometry. Because not enough of these pipes are the same for me to create a symbol, so I'm just going to let each one use its own individual geometry. This is a case where if you were doing like a proscenium theater where you had 40 pipes and they were all basically the same length, you might want to just create one symbol and use that symbol over and over to do different instances of it as the positions, but these are mostly all different, so I'm just going to use the geometry. And you'll see now that this says hanging position, and it's added this label that says pipe E. These arrows are just graphic, they're just arrows that I drew. The default label that it looks like this. It just has text that comes up, and you can move that text by grabbing on the E and putting it wherever you want it. It's fine with me if you just leave the regular text. If you want to change the text with the pipe selected, you can change the font or change any of the other attributes of the text. If you're interested in being a lighting designer, if you are a lighting designer or a lighting technician, you might want to take a look at other people's light plots and just see how they labeled their positions. Many people do it with arrows. Some people do it with circles. Some people do it with other shapes. Rarely do people do it with just text because the text gets lost amongst all of the lighting instruments. So eventually, those of you who are lighting designers will develop your own graphic style for what you want your light plots to look like. So if you want to add your own labels, just be aware that you can turn off these automatic labels in the hanging position here by simply turning off show name. So then you can add whatever graphic you want. It won't actually be added to the pipe. It's not connected to the pipe in any way, but you can add labels that way. So, but I'm just going to leave mine with the default label like this. So just go through and convert them all to lighting positions. Spotlight, object conversion, hanging position. This is pipe D. Pipe C. Pipe B. Pipe A. And then pipe 1. Pipe 2. Pipe 3. Pipe 4. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to create a symbol. And finally, pipe 5. And you might need to do a little cleaning up of where the labels. Oh, my labels are on the other end. Okay, it's interesting that it depends on which direction you drew the pipes in as to which end is the left end or the right end. If you can always move these. If I want to move these down here, I can just do that. Grab it by its blue box and move it. I'm going to move it a little closer to the pipe. Okay, so that is all of our grid lighting positions. So now we're going to go to the low lighting positions layer and create the 5 low lighting positions. So back to our lighting pipe. And we'll just draw these 5 pipes. And you'll notice that since we've have now set the class to the right attributes, these are automatically drawing as they're created with the darker line and the fill. So there. There. Here. And finally here. And then we need to give them a height. So I'm going to go back to my original black box drawing and go to the low lighting positions and just check the height. I think they're all the same, but so that's 16 feet, 16 feet, 16, 1 1/4. 16 is close enough. 16, 1 1/4. 16, okay, we're going to call them all 16 feet. 1 1/4 inches in the lighting pipe land is not really significant. In this particular case, it may be in some cases, but all right, so we're going to select all of those and make them 16 feet. And then convert them to positions. Spotlight conversion, hanging position. This is up, stage, right, low. This one's upstage left low. House left low. Center stage low. And this must be house right low. You'll discover as you work in more different spaces that there are some lighting positions that have common names that are always going to be the same, the first electric, the second electric, but particularly when you get into things like black box spaces or into front of house positions, often names have developed in the spaces over the years that are particular to the space, and like the Anti-Pro, we have a pipe in the main stage here called the Anti-Pro. I don't know why it's called. I mean, I understand it's in front of the Pro, but how that name developed, I have no idea. That's not a standard name for that position. But you'll discover that theaters have their own unique names for positions. So that should be all the lighting positions. If we go back to the theater architecture layer and move the PDF out of the way and check and see that we do have, in fact, all of the same positions here that we have here, then that completes the build. I'm going to turn everything back on here of the black box. So we have all of the architecture, the seating, all of the lighting pipes. So our final part of this project will be simply to viewport all of this out. And finally here we're going to set up our sheet layers to create our final PDF. So in order to do that, we're going to go here and create a new sheet layer. We're going to call this sheet 1, and it's going to be master plan with a small l. Okay. We're going to make this 150 dpi. Okay. And then we want to change this however you do in your operating system in page setup to a 36 by 48 sheet, which is frankly easier on a Mac than it is on a PC. If you need help with it on the PC, let me know, and I'll see if I can talk you through it. But so now we have our large sheet, and we want to go to the resource manager and find the title block styles and select the title block style 36 by 48. Double click on it, and then click once, and that should insert on your page. I'm just going to move this and make sure that I only have one of them. Okay. Then you can go in and edit what needs to be edited here. So under project data, you can put in the name of the project. This can either be ECF Blackbox or Project 11, whichever works. Put in the right date and fill in any of these things that are necessary. This is the data that will appear on every sheet. Then for this particular sheet, you can give it a title, although these title blocks are set up to automatically read the name of the sheet, of the layer, as the name of the sheet, as well as the number. So you should be able to leave that the same. Then if you, now that we have that set up, we're going to have 5 sheets, we can just duplicate this. So if we duplicate this and edit it and just call this one centerline section. Okay. And then duplicate that and edit that. Oops. Edit that. This one is going to be seating plan. Duplicate that. This one is going to be the tension grid. Okay. And then finally duplicate that and edit it, and this is going to be the lighting positions. Positions. Okay, so now we have all of our sheets set up. We're going to go back to really any of the design layers and we're going to create a viewport. We don't need to drag a rectangle around because we want to viewport the whole thing. So view, create viewport. We want to create a viewport on the master plan sheet. We want it to be in 1/2 inch scale, and you should be able to just leave everything else the same. And that should appear there. I'm just going to move it over and put it in the middle. So this is our master plan that shows everything. This shows the theater, it shows, it shows the tension grid, the seats, the lighting pipes, it's all there. Now we'll see hopefully why we did all of this classing and layering, because it'll aid us in being able to separate things out on these sheets. So I'm going to copy this, go to the seating plan, double click on that layer and do paste in place, just so it's at the same place on the sheet. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the tension grid layer, and the same thing on the lighting positions layer. Now, in order to get rid of everything except the lighting positions, I'm going to select the viewport and go to layers in the viewport and turn off the scenery layer, the tension grid layer. I think that's it. Why did all of the theater architecture go away? The theater architecture seems to be in the scenery layer. Let's see if that's in fact true. Oh look, I drew all of my theater architecture in the scenery layer. So I'm just going to select all of it and put it in the theater architecture layer where it belongs. So now if we go back to, I don't know if I had you do that last week in the video or not, but if I did, sorry about that. Now if we go back to lighting positions and go to layers, we can turn scenery off, leave theater architecture on. Okay, and we're still good. And we want to turn the seats off as well because they interfere with the lighting. And the seats are not on their own layer, but they're in their own class. So if we go to the class, as we can find stage seating, turn off the 3 classes there, and now we have our nice clean plan that is just the lighting positions. Then we can go to the tension grid layer and do the same thing. So we're going to turn off the layers, scenery, and both of the grid, both of the lighting positions, leaving the tension grid on. And then we'll turn off the 3 classes, stage seating, the 3 stage seating classes, leaving our plan of just the tension grid. And then if we go to this layer, which is the seating plan, we will turn off the layers that have the scenery, the lighting, the tension grid, and the grid lighting positions. You may wonder why we have a scenery layer since we don't have any scenery. We're setting all these, and we also have a sound layer and a projections layer. We're setting all these layers up to be nice to our colleagues so that we can all share the same file, and the scenic designer can put the scenery on the scenery layer, and the sound designer can put the sound on the sound layer, etc. So, and since this is a base master file for the whole theater, that's why I'm putting all of the layers in here. You can delete or add them as needed. And then we go back here, we have our master plan layer that has all of them. So the only thing we need to deal with is the centerline section. And so now we need to go back to the theater architecture layer and draw centerline section. So we're going to view, create section viewport. We're going to start right here at this point, which is where the centerline should be. Click, hold on shift, drag up, and we're going to go to the right. You notice this arrow right here is moving. So go to the right and double click and tell it we want to put it on the centerline section layer. Okay. It's going to think for a minute. And there is our centerline section of the space. What we don't have in this plan is the booth. I do have the booth on the PDF, but it's I'm not sure that that's actually accurate. That was drawn in for a show, and to my knowledge, no one has ever actually measured it. So I'm not going to have you put it in because I don't know that it's accurate. So if any of you are dying to go into the theater with a tape measure, then whenever we can get back into the theater and measure and see where the booth actually goes, then you're welcome to do that. So that, and you'll notice there's this weirdness here. This is because the center line is going directly through this railing, probably. I discovered this when I drew the other one. It should not do that, but if you, and you see what I'm talking about, that you can't see through the part that you're supposed to be able to see through. If you go back to here, and you'll see that the center line is going right through the railing. If you just nudge the center line to the left a little bit, so you cheat it slightly by 3/4 of an inch, essentially, because that's 1.5 inch pipe, so that it's not going right through the center, but is going through the just to the left of the pipe there, and then go back to whoops, wrong file. Go back to here and update. It should, after it thinks for a moment, yeah, it should solve that problem. That's just a glitch. I'm not sure why it does that. So there are our completed plans for the black box. So make sure all of your title block things are correct. Oh, scale. We need to make sure the scale on each page is the same. I thought we set it to 1/2 inch, but so let's start back here at the top. Yeah, fix our scale. So sheet data, and you should be able to hit update scale, and it will check and see what the viewport on the page is and update it to that. Now this is doing it in metric. Let's see if it changes it to, yeah, if you want it to 1 to 24 is the metric equivalent of 1/2 inch scale, but if you want it to say 1/2 inch, you're gonna have to type in 1/2 inch. oops. I'm gonna copy that or not. Let's see. Command C. Okay. So that I can make the same edit on each page. That didn't paste. All right, so I should have set the scale on the very first page, and then when I duplicated those pages, it would have already been set, but at any rate. So just make sure to go through and finish the other 3 pages with the right scale, and then save this as a PDF and turn it in, and that is Project 11.